going to show you three pictures, and I don't know if I can go back easily. You'll look here, this is a display board for a VIP visit, and you'll see look at just the format, how the pictures are stuck on, the tape around the edge, how things are labeled. The pictures in this particular VIP visit, these are classified items that are being made for classified programs. These pictures are not shown to the Germans. When the Germans come, the Germans see a different set of things. They see them on the same kind of display boards, same kind of taping, everything's done pretty much the same way. And they show things like this. This is what we are doing with the equipment you sold us. We're making camshafts and crankshafts for large diesel engines. We're doing all kinds of great things. This is training for our people. This is not the way you would do training. And I would point out that the photographs that are on that particular display board are taken from the advertising literature of the German companies. German companies were given the chance to respond on this. And again, I'm not really pointing fingers at anybody, but I'd like to point out that one of them kind of panicked, and everything we asked them was, no, we didn't do that. It couldn't possibly be us. And the other one actually said, well, the equipment that you're showing, that I'm going to show you in a minute here, is so crude that they couldn't have used our machines to build it. So we got some good answers back and some bad ones. When the Germans are visiting, I think you can spot them in the top two pictures. And they bring their experts and their people from their diplomatic service. Everybody in the factory wears civilian clothes. They stay in the background, and they just watch what's going on. When the Germans are gone, you notice they go back into the military uniforms, and the gentleman who's been boxed in all four pictures, the same man is the manager of the factory. So they are giving the Germans a very different story than they're giving when the Germans are gone. That is one of the key things, and because of the German visits, we have photographs so we know the equipment is the same equipment. The companies stipulate it's the same equipment, so we know our source was there. When my co-author on the June paper, Ali, who's back there somewhere, there's Ali standing at the bar, of course. She's a Scot. When she was showing me a bunch of pictures, I was going through them and I wasn't really recognizing things. I wasn't quite sure how important they were until she put this one down and said, well, those are bomb reactors. And she said, how do you know they're bomb reactors? I said, that's what they are. I mean, you can just see it. And she said, well, that's funny because we have a document saying build us some bomb reactors and we have drawings of them. And then we got very interested. We said, okay, now we've really got something here. And let's go back and look at those other components, which I'll show you. And then we began to see a program. Now, I get asked a lot of questions about this. I'm asked these questions all the time. You cannot say that Burma has a nuclear weapons program based on this picture. Okay? This is one component, only one component of the program. Could argue that it's used for other things. You could probably pop popcorn in these. There are a lot of different things that you could do. But when you start seeing the other things, and you see where Sy was working and who he worked for, then you begin to realize that these are part of a program. And I would emphasize that any analysis that we've done, any conclusions we've drawn, are of a program and from multiple sources of information, not from a single source. The other thing I point out in this photograph is that the unit on the left has obviously been subjected to heat. And these bomb reactors have to be heated up in a furnace for the reaction to take place in them. I think I've neglected to say that a bomb reactor is an unfortunate terminology. It's not a nuclear bomb, it's not a military bomb. It's a chemical bomb, and that is a term that's used in the chemistry business all the time. If you conduct a very violent reaction, you do it in a bomb. That's a chemistry term, not a military term in this case. And the other thing is it's a reactor for carrying out a chemical reaction. It has nothing to do with nuclear reactors. It's really unfortunate they gave it this title back in the Manhattan Project. I wouldn't have to explain it tonight. If you called these reduction vessels, everything would be fine. And you know it's for the Special Substance Research Department, which, whatever that is, sounds interesting to all of us. And in fact, that's the first thing Sy said. I don't know what these are, but it sounds interesting to me. The first drawings that we saw of the fluoride bed reactor called it a fluoride bed reactor, and we concluded it was a fluidized bed reactor. It's just the wrong terminology. Since then, we found more documents in Sy's collection that call it it's a fluoridized bed reactor. So we've got these three terms, and it's pretty clear that it's probably one of those three words. You use fluorine in the fluoridized bed reactor for making uranium hexafluoride gas. You make uranium hexafluoride gas because you want to enrich the isotopes to 235 so you can build a bomb. So this item is almost certainly for that purpose. I can give you other uses for it, but now we're starting to build a program and we're getting a flow sheet. A couple things else that you might notice in the picture. One is how clean the machine shop is. Because I'm going to come back to the assessment that this is a very poor program. But the machine shop's way too clean. Machine shops don't look like that. They're not doing anything. They're building a very few things and taking a lot of pictures. And the other thing that you see is you see those two machine tools. We have a floor plan from the Germans, so we know what machine tools sit in what locations. And that's where those machine tools sit in the German floor plan. So we can read the names on those machines, we know what the model numbers are, and we know that this really is the place again. These tube furnaces he thought had to do with lasers. We're quite sure that these tube furnaces, and I've checked this out with some experts in the U.S., are probably for fluorinating oxides to uranium tetrafluoride, another part of the process of making the uranium chemicals that are used in a nuclear program. At the moment I'm saying nuclear program, later I'll say nuclear weapons. There are other uses for these furnaces, but this is exactly the type that you use, and you'll notice that two of them have been used. Now, they would be used in some kind of a test program. Maybe they're not testing them with uranium. We don't know. You can't tell from a color picture. If you could get just a little bit closer, you could sample these tubes and you could get that answer very quickly. I think you have seen these guys posing their glove box. They're very happy. We're getting to the point now where we know the names of a number of the people in the picture, and we know where they went to school and what they majored in. So we're beginning to narrow in, not because we care about them as individuals, but because now we're able to corroborate more and more of the story that the Burmese have trained about 4,000 young military officers in Moscow in programs involving nuclear engineering, missile engineering, metallurgy, geochemistry, things like that. So knowing who they are, I don't really care their names, but I can now start to match them up with student lists. One of the things that we're going to say at the end of this is that they, according to Cy Win, he was told that they're going to try to enrich uranium isotopes using laser isotope separation. If you watch the Al Jazeera video, I believe the first cut of me is saying, that's the stupidest thing I can possibly imagine. The Western countries have spent billions of dollars aggregate trying to separate uranium isotopes with laser isotope separation. They've had no success. Not even no commercial success, just really no success. They have produced far more paper reports than they have grams of uranium. So the idea that they'd be doing this is very, very strange, and it comes back to an assessment of the program itself. This is a collector for catching uranium hexafluoride gas after you made it back in that fluoridized bed reactor. The English label here, by the way, the steel collector's label, is on the photograph that we're examining. Some of these photographs are labeled, and this is one that's labeled. In addition, he visited the nuclear battalion at Tabachin. This is interesting because a number of sources report on this place. I can't tell you how many, a dozen maybe, have mentioned this place, but always, you know, kind of one-line, two-line things. There is a nuclear battalion there. They're mining uranium there. They're concentrating it there. Never enough to get really excited about. Well, this guy went there, so he can tell us where it is, tell us how he got there. We've looked at all of the driving routes, and we've looked at landmarks and other information that's come out. We know where it is. We can see it. Again, he visited with the general officers who were being briefed on the uranium enrichment in the reactor, and he heard about a yellowcake plant nearby. Yellowcake being an early key stage in the process of producing uranium to use in the nuclear program. This is imagery again provided by Janes of what we believe is the yellowcake plant in the lower right-hand corner, and an unknown area in blue over in the left-hand side. I don't even want to talk about the one on the left-hand side now because I don't know what it is, but it's very interesting. The layout of it has some funny things about it that make me think more in line with the military program. But the one on the right is a typical concentration plant. Now, I can't tell you from imagery if it's a uranium plant. It has the right signatures for uranium plant, the wrong signatures for a gold plant, but that doesn't mean it isn't some other things. But this, if you walk it through and look at how it's built, could be the uranium concentration plant that he heard about, and it's about 2 kilometers from what we think is the headquarters of Tabachin. These 3 buildings were among the ground photographs that were provided, and the last few times I gave this talk, I've been able to say we found them now. We were really quite concerned because we couldn't find them in what we knew was the headquarters area, and they're distinctive enough in satellite imagery that any good analyst can pick these out. And we didn't have them, and we didn't have them, and we didn't have them, and we were really getting concerned that our story had a big hole. Until Jane's got some very high quality cloud-free imagery, which we didn't have up until about, I guess it was maybe 6 weeks ago, and Roland Watson published some maps in Dictator Watch, which we were able to match up to these buildings exactly. So we know the exact lat long of these buildings, and I'm going to show you something interesting in these buildings in a few minutes. But as you can see, they're not very big, they're not terribly specialized. I have my ideas about what they might be. It's too early to speculate in public, but this is part of the program. They're known as the 3 factories, and there are 2 others side by side. Why are they interesting? The lower left corner is at that same site. Those 2 buildings we can find on satellite imagery, and we know where the man in the white shirt is standing. What we don't know is what he stands for. His name is Kokou. He was the head of the Department of Atomic Energy, and is also the head of DTVE, which you may remember back in the earlier slides is the ones who bought the machine tools from the Germans to use in the 2 special factories. In the upper left-hand picture, he's standing there in a sarong with some visitors, and in this position he's representing his job on a committee for the IAEA. One of his jobs is to apportion IAEA technical cooperation money to Asian states for nuclear training. In the picture on the right, he's looking at a very large diesel engine. Remember, we saw diesel engines in the photographs in the factories, that's what they're supposed to be working on. These diesel engines are trucked out each time the Germans come. They're shown to the Germans along with those funny display boards, and then they're put away. That's him. He likes to wear white shirts. That's very convenient. And then down below, he's saying goodbye to the Germans. This is Factory 2 on the upper side, Factory 1 in the lower. So he's hosted them at both sites. And in the lower left-hand corner, he's at Tabet Chen, the nuclear weapons laboratory, the nuclear weapons battalion, and he's examining the construction of these buildings and seeing how it's coming. They're finished now, by the way. We can see in satellite imagery, at least the construction is complete. So someone who sits on an IAEA committee based out of Seoul, Korea, and hands out money to Southeast Asian states in general, for nuclear training for nuclear scientists, is also involved in the nuclear weapons program. And that's part of why I'm here. You will hear my conclusion, what I think about that. Can anybody guess what my conclusion is? A lot of the workmanship is extremely poor. These photographs are of a gentleman putting together something called a burning chamber. We don't know what it is. I can buy all those components at my local hardware store in Vienna, and I think I can put them together almost as well. This is very crude stuff, and as I say, one of the German companies said, "You're asking us to comment on building these things." If they use our machines for that, they used them at a very low level of quality. Also, we don't know that the burning chamber or an automatic autoclave sterilizer have anything to do with the nuclear program. If you have some other guesses, I'll leave it to you. I'm a nuclear person. But sterilizers belong in my dentist's office, I think. My opinion, and this very clearly is Bob speaking, I'm not speaking for anybody except me, it's a clandestine nuclear program. He was briefed on it. I wouldn't have taken it so seriously if he didn't provide all this other stuff. He's an Army major, but he went with generals as an aide. He's a mechanical engineer, and he makes it really clear. I have no idea what these things I'm showing him the pictures of. If I ask Cy Wynn, what do you do in the fluoridized bed reactor? He says, I don't know. I've never seen one before. I don't know what it is. He's really good about that, which is better than a lot of sources who will sit there and tell you what you want to know. You just give them enough information, and the sources will tell you anything you want, particularly if you buy them lunch. So that's another reason I really like the guy. The things he's building are components from the uranium fuel cycle. You can agree or disagree. Of the people I've briefed on this for the last few months, I don't think one person has disagreed on the technical description of this stuff. They say that's what those things are. But Bob, you can't prove it's for uranium. You can't prove it's for a nuclear program. And you can't prove it's for a nuclear weapons program. And I say, fine, this is